In this step along the feature tour, we are going to focus on the deployment functionality that Carafe provides. Up until now, we've been working on a very simple bundle, which has fewer moving parts, so it makes it a little bit easier to focus on. So we'll go ahead and continue to use that. And then also we had previously begun working with a file that we created from the starter templates. This one has just been prepared with a web viewer named web on the layout, so we can continue working with that. And if we look in the script workspace, I've cleared out the prior scripts. We've just got a little folder here that we can use for our deployed scripts. Once you've selected your script and you've done as much configuration as you need to do in Carafe and your text editors, it's time to deploy the script. So you click on the deploy button and you have two switches that you can flip. You can go standard or advanced, and you can go production or development. When you open the file, by default, production will be set and standard will be set. So first of all, I want to focus on the difference between standard and advanced. So if we copy this very simple script using the standard deployment and go over to our file and open the script workspace, paste in our script. As we've seen before, it has two of the three config variables exposed as runtime parameters. So we will be able to inject our own FileMaker data in there. The config parameters are already compiled into the template, and the template is right here. So if we look at this, if you recall from the prior video, the config variable of it's called title is already merged into the template. So the only two that remain are message and message body. And that's why those are exposed up here in the script parameter, and why they are also filled in with sample data in the event that you don't pass a script parameter. So let's take a look at Carafe again and deploy that same script, but with advanced mode. So the help text does change a little bit, and you can refer to that for assistance when you're working on your own project. It's worth noting that so far, if we do a blink comparison between the two, they don't look any different. So the first part of the script is identical. So let me scroll to the end of the standard script, and let me scroll to, let me see if I can get to the same position with the slightly longer advanced script. You can see also up until in the standard script, we just do set web viewer, where we actually set the HTML output directly on the web viewer object. The only time the script deviates is there. So in the advanced script, the only difference is how we interact with the web viewer. We won't get into the details of that right now. The point of it is that these techniques, these are standard techniques that everybody has been doing for ages to support WebViewer Bridge, and their implementation details of WebViewer Bridge. And essentially, that's all you need to know. Now let's take a look back at Carafe and deploy in a standard deployment in development mode, and look at the difference between those. Copy standard script, done. Now I come over here, paste. Okay, so this one is also very similar to, scroll to the bottom. The blink comparison is very similar. The main difference that you'll see is that in the development mode one, instead of just simply a insert text step, it's actually doing a perform script, and then it's doing a set variable with get script result. So that is how we're getting the merged template. We're not storing it in the script like we are in a production mode script, we're making a file reference back to this script in Carafe that's called fetch bundle template by ID from file Carafe, and then we've associated the unique identifier with it as the script parameter. And the point of this, go ahead and run this script, is now I'm in my file, but if I come over here, and we're going to use our convenience editor and open this online. We're going to go in here to our config JSON and make a config change that we want to save and reload. There we go. Hello, small world. Send to Carafe. We're going to overwrite. So hello, small world. But if I flip to my solution file and run the script again without having to redeploy, I can see hello, small world here in my solution file. Now, this is very, very useful for getting things initially tuned up. Let me show you why. If you, as a best practice, we deploy fairly self-contained scripts that have a version reference and a bundle name in the script name. And as a best practice, we would suggest always creating a separate data loader script. So I'm going to do a new script. We're going to call this data loader. Call that whatever you want, but this is where your business logic is going to dovetail with the bundle loader. So this would be what you hook your button or your trigger to, or whatever other type of logic is going to be fired that will load your data viewer. And it's going to initially contain a perform script, and you're going to pick your data loader. You're going to reference the Carafe bundle script that you've deployed that you want to use. So we're going to say parameter, copy that local variable name because I'm going to use that in my script. So I'm going to say set variable. Variable is going to be called parameter. And actually right now I'm going to leave that blank because I'm going to go back over to my deployed script, which it's the same in both cases. You recall we could actually rename this one dev mode. And from both of these scripts, there is a deployed JSON set element which has structure that you need to load your variable. So if we open this, we could actually set these variables in some other part of the script. Just leave that totally intact. In this case, it's so simple. We're going to just go ahead and change the message local variable reference with a field reference, and we're going to replace the message body with a description reference and say OK. Save the script. Whatever we do to execute our data loader script is going to need to build up that final parameter and perform the bundle script with that parameter. This is always how you should do it. It's kind of like in FileMaker when you need to have just a single script step and you wire that up to a button. That's never a great idea because it always turns into a second script step. So you might as well just go ahead and make the script right then and there. Same thing with this. Just go ahead and make the data loader script. That's going to be where your business logic ends, and it'll allow you to switch between versions. It'll allow you to switch between a dev mode version and a production version by simply just changing the reference right there in the perform script step. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to stay with the dev mode version. I'm going to run my data loader, and right now I get nothing. That's because my data is blank. This is going to be Jeremiah, and this is going to be some description. So now I have my data being injected into the script. Now, remember, if we're still in development mode, we can go back to Carafe at this point, and we can open up our editing environment, whether that's our online editor, and we still have control over the config variables or over the JavaScript template or all the things that are not FileMaker data. We can still edit. Let's just go ahead and put in another, like a footer. And actually, I guess that really should be after the body. And we'll go Carafe was here. So now the footer element in my HTML is printing. And if I send to Carafe and say allow and overwrite, now we can see it in our Carafe bundle. And then we go to our solution file, trigger the data loader script, and we've updated our Carafe template. That's an important capability. Many times your FileMaker data will be somewhat complex, and it's very handy to be able to debug and work in your file instead of in Carafe, and only in Carafe with sample data. That's the best practice of Carafe is we build a versioned named script, which by and large you shouldn't have to edit. There is the exception if you are using an alternate web viewer name. That would be something that you would have to come back in and tweak if you redeploy. But if you're doing a situation where you're working on version 2.0.1, you don't have to initially deploy every time you want to see your change. You can just use a dev mode version, which references back to Carafe, and not need to continually go back and keep tweaking the script or seeing version after version in here. So if you recall, this was configured differently. So if I run this one, it doesn't have the footer. If I run this one, it does have the footer, and it has a different title. So now if I'm ready for production, I can just actually delete the old version, my old development version, come over to Carafe, click deploy. I'm going to stick with production deployment, copy to clipboard, done. Come back over here, paste, and then open up my data loader, switch to the production mode. In fact, at this point, I might even delete the dev mode. Depends on your circumstance, where you are with your development process. If you're going to now push your production file into an environment where Carafe doesn't exist, there may be no reason for this development script to stick around. The other thing is to keep in mind, it does reference it by the GUID that gets generated for it. So if you plan on potentially like starting a new version, because this is a stable build that you've just tagged as 2.0.1, then you probably would want to delete this, because now you're going to actually go back over to Carafe, and I will actually do this. You're going to go into the detail area, say create new version. We're just going to create a new patch, which will increment the patch level of the semantic version up one. And so now you can begin work on your feature changes or tweaks or bug fixes or whatever on 2.0.2. Now we're going to go ahead and close out 2.0.1 out of our editor and open 2.0.2. Go into our config, make a little tweak, bug fix, whatever you want to call it. Save, preview, bundle is valid, tweak looks good, send to Carafe. Now this time, of course, it's going to overwrite a different version. This is going to be, it's linked to 2.0.2. So when it's time to deploy this, we might want to do a dev version. We might want to do a standard, a production version. It really depends on the circumstance, but if you're confident that this one is ready to be built and it doesn't need to connect back to Carafe for QA or whatever, it's your choice. Copy to clipboard, flip over to your production file, paste it in. Now you see the new version is there. It's also noted in the description. If you haven't made any other edits, like for example, if you're still using the same web viewer name, and if it's not an advanced script where you need to make field references, you're good to go. Now all you have to do is you go into your data loader, open up, switch the context of that script, save it, run it. Now here's hello medium world. And if you need to roll back, you go back because, for whatever reason it didn't work. Reference your original version because it's still there. Save, run it. There's your old version. So that about covers it with the features and functionality of using Carafe to deploy bundles in your solution file.